And I mean, AI is sort of that to the extreme. It's sort of the logical extension of broken containment VC mindset, which is it's now the entire global economy is hinging off of those, 10 billboards in San Francisco.
Because, she's in the Bay like I am. And she's like, all right, I'll work with these tech companies. She, worked with the Obama administration. She heard about this company called the Uber and the Lyft, these small companies. And in your book, Catherine, you were saying, okay, initially, you're like, all right, Uber, Lyft, yeah, maybe they might help. And, tech is inevitable. And maybe we can work with them. And maybe they can help the community. And, you can't just ignore them. And you were in the East Bay, Oakland. And Oakland was like, nah. We're doubtful. So let's just take the DeLorean back a little bit, Catherine, if you don't mind, before we get into the book and what made you decide to call these people the world eaters. So let's take us back to that time several years ago. You're like, all right, I'm in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, technology. We built stuff from our garage, right? Here we go. Uber, Lyft, game changer. They ain't going anywhere. Let me see if I can work with them. Can you take us into the mindset of Catherine in that time?
Well, it was deeply optimistic, I think a little naive. But I mean, I think, for those of us who were doing this work in that moment, it made a lot of sense. I mean, it was the height of the don't be evil and yes, we can movement,
I remember don't be evil. Google, that was Google's motto. She's not making it up. Don't be evil.
Yeah, it was the good old days. I mean, everything was possible. It was all optimism. We were coming out of the Great Recession. It looked like tech was going to be the industry that sort of single-handedly pulled the economy out of the gutter. And so, and I was working on the Obama campaign at the time. I ran our technology office in San Francisco. So I was seeing the best version of Silicon Valley at that time. And San Francisco just felt like a place of so much hope and possibility. And it didn't take that long. So, that's like 2012, 2013. Something happened over the course of like the next, it had probably already been festering, but it really took root by 2015, 2016, that actually this recovery, especially the one that tech was creating, wasn't actually flowing to everybody. And in fact, maybe making things worse for people who weren't already in the industry. I think we're talking now a lot about quote unquote K-shaped recoveries. I mean, the Bay Area in many ways is sort of the ghost of Christmas future for the economic fortunes of the country. And so it was in this sort of moment that Uber announced that they were moving to downtown Oakland, where I lived at the time. And the reaction of the community really kind of like brought to the fore for me this change in mindset, that actually how the industry was evolving was not actually evolving towards what we were promised from the internet. And that reaction to Uber's announcement was quite negative. And so that really got me thinking about like, doing my own self-reflection about my optimism about this industry, but also like how we had gotten here. This wasn't the industry we were promised, and it isn't why I loved technology. And so I started digging into that. Was it something unique to this industry? Was it something about the Bay Area? And more importantly, like, what would it take to get us back on the right track? And that was really like the origin story of the organization I run, Tech Equity, which is trying to make sure that as the tech industry grows, it is creating economic benefit for everybody instead of driving widespread displacement and inequality.
That means you're a flaming radical communist, and we don't allow these types of dangerous thoughts here.
Am I? I think that sounds pretty.
I kid. But I think it is important because I'm from the Bay Area. I just came back last night to visit my family, and I think that's important. I think we forget how we meaning both the majority, Democrats, liberals, we embraced Facebook and Twitter and Mark Zuckerberg and, the Obama administration. And Democrats were like, okay, let's help you. And the great irony is that these individuals, these entrepreneurs, these companies that were so beloved and embraced that were going to change the world, the 2015, I think, is that right point where these people now have become the architects, or rather the future architects of our misery. And it's like this supervillain arc where now they're just openly radicalized in the way where they are openly espousing an authoritarian mindset. Before we get to specifically, well, I actually want to talk about this because you talk about the mindset of these individuals, right? But before I get into it, what's common to you, Catherine, isn't common to everyone. When it comes to venture capital, right? Someone's watching right now and they're like, I've heard this, but you know what? I don't want to raise my hand and ask what a venture capitalist is because I don't want to be seen as dumb. What exactly is a venture capitalist? What do they do?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess to first to just say, like, the thesis of the book is essentially this, the reaction to what Uber was doing in that moment was a symbol of this reaction to tech, and it's sort of this backlash against tech and the tech industry. But what I think we were really reacting to is not the technology itself or even the companies, but actually the economic system that sort of empowers this industry and gives it its values. And that system is venture capital. And you're right, many of us don't actually understand what that is. And I think the danger there is that we misdirect our energy to things that are not actually going to solve the problem. So, what is VC? So, it really came out of, I mean, it served a real need when it was invented in the middle of the 20th century, which was that there was not enough risk capital in the financial system to bring high risk new technologies that could create whole new markets and change our lives to market. So a bunch of sort of civic and business leaders started thinking about, like, how do we actually create um, the financial tools that we need in order to um, fund these risky breakthroughs. And what they settled on was this portfolio approach, which was, instead of just investing in individual companies, which was, remarkably common back then, they would pool funds from institutional investors and spread them out over a variety of companies so that they could spread the risk. And the idea was that, there would be some of those companies that would be huge returners, and they would more than make up for the much larger number of failures. And by doing so, it actually return as an average more money to the investors. And that actually worked. And it was a really important part of, the economic growth of the middle of the 20th century. It and that is that distribution in the fund, where there are a small number of high performers and a large number of low performers, is called a power law. And the power law has really come to define Silicon Valley, and it really is the law that governs how tech companies run. And basically, what it means is that all of the companies who get funded by venture capital have to try to be that huge outsized returner, because nobody knows which company is actually going to end up that way. And the VCs are trying to optimize their success. And so they push every company to act that way, even though very few of them can naturally get there. And it's by running that playbook of just get as big as possible, as quickly as possible, that creates all this variety of fallout, and attracts fraudsters and con men, as we have seen over the past decade. And is ultimately, I think, really bad, not just for society, but for innovation and the future of the economy.
Yeah, like get big as quickly as possible. Throw money at it. One person will emerge. Who cares about the damage done? What do they say? Break stuff. Move fast.
Move fast and break stuff.
Oh,
Break things, I believe. Yeah.
when I was
That is
growing
it.
up,
That's it in a nutshell.
move fast and break things. When I was growing up, I mean, just to see it, like just the fascinating arc, even in my life, move fast and break things was embraced. It was the part of the old garage band ethic. We're young, we don't have much money. Let's move fast. We'll break stuff. Everyone does, right? Like kids, you have to like get your hands a bit dirty. But the sad part is, Catherine, is move fast and break stuff. They're moving fast. They're breaking our economy and our democracy now. Like this
Yeah.
isn't just like to break in your garage. This is like, crypto. Let's inflate it. It might be a Ponzi scheme. I don't know. I'm making money. Let's tether it to the economy. Can we talk about AI when it comes to AI and the move fast break stuff? Because I feel right now we're in a moment, and I want to ask you this because I was going on the Bay Bridge and I saw not just one billboard for AI. Within a period of 1 mile, I saw
Yeah.
four billboards for AI. And all of a sudden, my spidey sense, having survived 2008, is like, move fast, break things. I think they're going to break the economy. Your
Well,
take.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
go for it.
I think actually, it's one thing when you're on the margins of the economy and you're really just sort of, on the fringe. Silicon Valley was really an outpost for like freaks and weirdos, and the people who are investing in tech companies at that time were like, you know, doing hallucinogenics and I mean, very fringy. And, it's kind of healthy to have a little bit of that in the economy. I think there's something deeply American about that. The challenge is the other side of that coin is when it breaks containment. And I think that's what we're living with now. And that's why I called the book World Eaters. It's one thing for VC to be kind of on the fringes of the economy, sort of creating these fostering these technologies that can then move into the mainstream. But it has become the center of the economy now, and that is really unhealthy. And I think this sort of move fast and break things mentality, when it is the driving force of the economy, is super dangerous. And we see, I mean, it just naturally lends itself towards fascism and monopoly. That is what VCs are, that is the design, right? They are trying to achieve monopolies. I mean, Peter Thiel wrote a whole book, Zero to One, about how important it was to like take complete market share. He said competition is for losers. That mindset in some contained areas of the economy can be healthy. It is not healthy in the way it's being practiced now. And I mean, AI is sort of that to the extreme. It's sort of the logical extension of broken containment VC mindset, which is it's now the entire global economy is hinging off of those, 10 billboards in San Francisco.
Yeah, Catherine, what is it? 7 companies or 8 companies right now that is like fueling much of the growth of the American economy that kind of masks how bad it really is.
Yeah,
And it's mostly AI, right?
it's 7. I'd say it's probably more like 5 or 6, but,
Mm.
yeah, that's not a great place to be. I think it's one that it is, I can heap a lot of blame on VCs and tech leaders, and I have. But, it's sort of our fault. And frankly, those of us who worked for the Obama campaign and administration bear some responsibility here, of just kind of letting that go without any sort of pruning or care and feeding or like creating guardrails to protect Silicon Valley from itself. And we're now dealing with this sort of overgrown. I'm going to find more metaphors, ways to talk about this like spread, but like this overgrown garden of, invasive weeds that are now sort of taking over and crowding out other good things that we need. I mean, that was sort of the biggest tragedy that I wrote about in the book was it's not just the companies that VC invests in, it's the ones that they don't. And it's the opportunities that can't come to market and in areas like housing where we desperately need innovation. It's not a market that's fit for the move fast and break things approach. And so VC either like warps the incentives there or it doesn't fund the companies at all. And like we miss out on a lot when we don't have that in the financial system. And it also speaks to like all this money that's going into AI, which is not going into other areas of the economy that would create sort of healthier, more sustainable growth.
Yeah, you have a fantastic chapter on housing and labor. I want to get into that for a second, but I just want to stick on this for a moment. That Democrats, and we have to be honest, and we always try to be honest in the show. They are part and parcel of the problem. They thought, hey, okay, good for the economy, tech growth, fantastic. No guardrails, do what you got to do. Okay, fantastic. These people now have become the Bond supervillains. They have an obscene amount of wealth that is probably unseen in human history. And now, like you mentioned, Catherine, openly they have espoused, and we've talked about it on this program a lot, this authoritarian mindset, right? Curtis Yarvin, where democracy is incompatible with capitalism. And now Peter Thiel, with all of his money, has groomed J.D. Vance, who agrees with it. And now you have Mark Andreessen and Mark Zuckerberg and all these folks, Elon Musk, just openly going full authoritarian, and in some cases with Musk and others going full fascist and flirting with Nazis, right? And essentially are capturing. They're just capturing everything, capturing democracy, spending, Elon Musk spent over $200 million, almost $300 million, excuse me, try to get Trump elected, spent over $20 million in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. And the problem that I have is when I come back from the Bay, I pay attention. I pay attention to Gavin Newsom. I pay attention to some of these Democrats. They also get paid by these individuals. And you see Mamdani Portability. I won't touch the billionaire money. But I haven't heard that from Gavin Newsom. I haven't heard that from
No.
Chuck Schumer. I haven't heard that from Gillibrand. I haven't heard that from the Democratic establishment. Can you talk to us about how much, because you're in it right now, how much money still from the oligarchy that is against democracy still goes into the Democrats,
Oh,
which keeps regulation?
yeah. I mean, I don't know how much money they're spending. I think it is as much the threat. It's like this sort of Damocles that is hanging over the Democrats that if they go too far um, in pushing back on tech, that they will pay an enormous price. And, I think that's what happened with Biden. I mean, he didn't invite Elon to the White House to talk about electric vehicles. And like that just sent the entire industry over the deep end into MAGA's arms, at least in the way that they tell it. And so I think you see a lot of like scared Democrats who are worried about that. And, I'm in California. We work on California politics. Mark Zuckerberg announced that Meta is going to be spending $100 million on state level elections in 2026. I mean, they were talking about the state assembly and legislature, not even, congressional races here. And that's an enormous amount of money. Andreessen set up his own PAC. I mean, they're basically running the crypto playbook that cost Sherrod Brown his office and Katie Porter her shot at the Senate. And they're trying to do that again for sort of a pro AI agenda. And so that has Democrats scared, and they don't want to step too far out. I mean, we just saw here in California, OpenAI, which was trying to convert from a nonprofit to a for-profit, the AG had to sign off on it. And in the final agreement between the state and the company that allowed them to make this transition, which is a pretty weak agreement, I would say, it was like riddled through with references to OpenAI not leaving the state. And that just makes it clear that they have been making this threat to the AG that if he came down too hard on them, they'd like go to Texas or whatever. So they've become unmanageable. And I think that's the risk with monopoly. It's been very hard to make the case that like economic inequality and democratic inequality are actually the same issue. I think it's now becoming very clear to people why unaccountable corporate power is fundamentally anti-democratic. We're seeing this play out. Like corporations are going to try to rig the system to work in their favor. The only thing that is stopping them are the checks and balances from government. And now they have fundamentally bought the rule makers. And I don't mean this as like I don't want to sound personal against people like Gavin or, the attorney general. They're making, logical choices. They can risk their entire career and agenda, or they can find a way to sort of manage this. And the only way to manage it is by essentially letting them do almost everything they want.
If I were, if I was in that situation, I'm like, but this is why I'm not an elected official. I'd be like, this is an honorable fight. It'll be me versus them. I'll go down with the ship, and then maybe, inshallah, I can, rally the majority. But that's just me, and this is why.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some. I mean, obviously, Zoran is the perfect example, but it required him to be like a generationally charismatic politician, which many of these people are not. So it is easier said than done. I think the key is for the rest of us to create a political counterforce that tells them if you make the right decision, there is safety for you here. We've got your back. And honestly, I think they're still in a mindset. You can see this the way they talk about AI in DC. They're still in this mindset that nobody really cares. Like the average voter doesn't think about AI or technology or corporate power when they're making their voting decisions. And it's up to us, people like, the work we do at Tech Equity to draw that connection because people are thinking about this and they're
Yep.
deeply concerned about it. And they're maybe not voicing it as like AI is my top issue, but they are concerned about the way algorithms are making things more unaffordable, price discrimination, surveillance, all of these things that are making their lives harder and that feed into the housing crisis. AI is going to take everybody's jobs. That's like the best case scenario that the industry is painting right now. Like all of these things are the fundamental core of what it is to live a good life, and they are connected to the future of AI. And people know that and are starting to articulate it. And I do think that in 2026 and definitely in 2028, the politicians that are willing to or able to who articulate that message are going to be the ones who reap the benefits, and the cowards are going to find themselves on the sidelines. So I'm hopeful that that is starting to break through. I see it in a few people, but 2026 will be, I think, a real shakeout moment.
I mean, you just inspired me to just thought of think of something I just posted yesterday is that if Democrats don't run on this, MAGA or the new MAGA that is going to come after Donald Trump has already jumped on it, Catherine, because I'm sure you've all seen Steve Bannon. If you haven't seen, Steve Bannon is now publicly and openly warning about
I mean,
AI.
he has been for a long time.
And he's not just warning him and MTG. And this is why I always say people laugh at me and they say, oh, they're just cranks. I'm like, folks, you're not paying attention.
Yeah,
They're trying to court what comes after Trump.
I
And
fully agree.
my fear is knowing Democrats and knowing power and knowing corporate money is that they're going to put in a stopgap candidate, someone who's a centrist, someone who's going to say it's too big to fail, someone who's going to say, you know what, instead of reformation, let's do restoration. And if you see on AI, folks, MTG and specifically Steve Bannon came out yesterday, literally said, I'm going to declare war on those candidates who don't go against AI because AI is the game changer. They're going to AI is going to gobble up everything. And these supervillains like Lutnick and others who are part and parcel of the Trump administration are openly saying it now because they're so drunk with power. They're just revealing the plot. And so Bannon now is coming out more boldly against AI and the threats of AI than I see many Democrats. And I'm like, God, why do I live in the worst timeline, Catherine? Because I know there's so many low information voters, and they are going further to the left where the majority is on America First, non-interventionism, not helping a genocide, going against AI, right? Release the Epstein files. I need to see that type of energy from mainstream Democratic establishment. I don't know if we'll see it, but I wanted to ask you this before we talk about labor, because someone it was a community member asked this. Doug, can you please explain how we talked about AI, but another component of this is crypto and how they're just inflating crypto, getting money, and then, God forbid, what I think is it's a Ponzi scheme is that when AI collapses, to me, it's just a matter of when. Right after that, it's going to be crypto. And then my fear is we're going to go back to 2008, where it's so tethered to our financial institutions, so tethered to billionaires. What we're going to be told, Catherine, is sorry, folks, it's too big to fail. Waj and Catherine, you're going to have to bail it out.
Yeah, I'm glad. I want to be on the record for that now. So just quickly on the Bannon thing, because I think this is a really important point. It is actually both a real opportunity. I mean, I think the politics of AI are remarkably unifying between sort of the populist right and the progressive left. And if we can figure out a way to sort of like build a coalition there, I think there's a lot of opportunity to sort of build fully out of the like political cul-de-sac we find ourselves in. But it's also a real risk for Democrats because, to your point, Steve Bannon is really tapping. I mean, he knows how to do. He knows how to tap into people's emotional sense of what's going on. I mean, if there's anything he's a genius at, it's that. And so people should be very scared that he is talking this way, and Democrats are not. Democrats are still trying to find a way to like rationalize this growth. We need this growth, blah, 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 blah. If we don't find a way to speak to people's emotional understanding of what's going on here, this fundamentally anti-human technology that is undermining everything that it means to be human. Forget about your job or the data centers or whatever. It is about our souls. And if we can't find a way to speak to that, I think we are going to lose. So it's really important that, whoever is running in 26 and 28 on the left come to find their spiritual language around this technology.
Well,
Um,
Kat, I've been saying it. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. No one listens to me. Hopefully they listen to you, and I hope anyone who's listening and paying attention realizes that you cannot take the right for granted. I do not take Bannon, Candace Owens, MTG, Tucker Carlson for granted. They are running an economic populist playbook against the elite and the AI, and they're trying to win over folks on economic populism, anti-interventionism, and the Epstein files. And if we don't meet them with that robust energy, Catherine, I'll just say this real quick before we talk about, giving it back to you when it comes to crypto. I was at a Bay Area fundraiser just 2 days ago. I just got back last night. And, people said, Waj, you need to talk to, after I shared this, people said, Waj, you're just in some rare circles. I'm like, nope. Otherwise informed, educated people, Catherine, in the Bay Area, where you and I was born, you are right now, said, hey, man, I saw a clip from Nick Fuentes. I think he's onto something. And I'm like, he's a Nazi. Nah, he's not a Nazi, bro. He's just kidding. He's a Nazi. Nah, watch. Hey, you know what? What? I think Candace Owens has come around. I'm like, she has not come around. No, no, I think she has. And they're talking about like economic populism. They were critical about the genocide. Wow. So people who think that this is just the fringe, Catherine, I don't think they realize how this, like you said, is really resonating across the board, across ethnicities, across political affiliation. And I think the next one is in crypto, right after AI, which will bubble up. So sorry
Yeah.
for my rant, but continue.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I didn't answer your question about crypto. I mean, I think you are. I see two possible paths here, and I think I've been reading the Wall Street Journal and New York Times financial pages, and they are starting to articulate this now too. But in my dumb, non-financial brain, I was listening to the arguments about AI and hearing two things: either it doesn't work, and um, it doesn't automate everybody's that's what they're selling. It's going to automate everybody's job. Company like the value proposition is that companies are going to find unprecedented efficiencies because they're not going to have to employ as many people. So there will be widespread job displacement. That's the only way to make the finances work. If you look at the projections and how much capital is going into the build out, the only way to make it pay off in the long term is if they find these massive benefits in efficiency by automating a lot of jobs. So that's a horrible future, right? The other path is, okay, they don't. Like the technology never gets to the point where it can actually replace all these jobs. Then the bottom falls out of the financial market because it's been built on this idea that it will create all of these efficiencies and drive all this value. And if it doesn't, then, in 3 or so years, that's the full financial system. And to your point, like crypto is baked into that pie now as well. I am freaked out that we are now allowing private retail investors through your 401k or whatever to invest in private capital funds, including venture capital, where there are no disclosures, private debt, private equity. That is insane. I mean, the whole logic behind there being public disclosures for publicly traded companies is that everyday investors need to have more information about what they're investing in. And now we're allowing them to get into these things that are extremely volatile, extremely risky, and have no information about, what's behind them. So there's just so much risk baked into this that it's hard to see how, if the AI bet doesn't pay off, that the bottom doesn't fall out for everybody. We are no longer, it's not 2000 where, this was funny, kind of on the fringe, pets.com, whatever. It is integrated into the entire system.
And once it fails, the whole grid goes down, folks. It's like 2008 times 10 and much dumber. And it pains like I see it happening, Catherine. Who am I? I'm just an English major, and I'm just terrified. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But you said in your book, world eaters. You use the word cannibal, and you give examples of that, right? And this is where you have these chapters on labor and housing. And if I may, because I'm teasing out your book so people go buy it. We won't give them
Please
everything,
do.
but
Yeah.
we'll give them enough. But speaking about the Bay Area, I was in the Bay Area, and so many people are now doing Ubers, right? So for the last 2, 3 months, just seeing where the economy is going, and I usually try to do this. I just talk to my Uber driver just to
Wait,
sense get.
you didn't take a Waymo while you were here?
I did not. No, I did not take away. Sorry. I usually try to drive, but then there was an Uber drive, so I talked to these Uber drivers, and I was asking them, and about their lives, and most of them are just like getting by, right? And most of them are like, man, I do this. I thought they'd say 4 hours. Back in the day, some of them like, 4 hours. Oh, I do it at night. I do it on the weekend. Now these guys, 12-hour shifts, 13-hour shifts. And then I say, are you making it? And like barely. And I'm like, how much does Uber take? Uber takes, they like say like an obscene amount of money, right? So
Yeah.
I remember, Catherine, I'm old enough to remember Uber came out, and all these gig economy stuff came out
No, it
from
was when it came out, it was the sharing economy.
thank you, the sharing economy, and this will help the workers, and this will help give us a little extra money.
And
And
all those billboards were sharing economy billboards back then.
I'm old enough to remember the
Yeah.
sharing economy. let's just stick with Uber and when it comes to venture capitalist and labor, because I think that's the gig economy is just a great example of how it started off as something really good for everyone. And now here we are as essentially subservient individuals of Uber that pretty much does nothing. The laborers literally just break their backs and they get like maybe if they're lucky, 30%.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and also all of this is enabled not just by venture capital, which has defined the business model, but by AI. So all of these drivers never interact actually with Uber. They interact with Uber's algorithms that set their prices and determine whether they are hired or fired and, really determine their living. So this idea that they are independent small business owners who kind of can drive their own destiny is crazy. I mean, they live under, it's sort of like if the two scenarios that I painted of either the bottom falling out of the financial markets or jobs being fully automated, um, it's kind of like we're living in the best case scenario right now, which is that people have jobs, but they're just managed by, you know, um, panopticon bosses that are algorithmically driven, right? And I guess that Uber driver would rather take a 40% cut of the ride than a 0% cut of the ride. If the mentioned Waymo, like that's coming too. So I think that
Can you tell people what Waymo is for those who don't know?
it's the self-driving car company, which is on the road in a few cities in California. I think they're in a few other cities around the country too. And I think they have a partnership with Uber, maybe in Atlanta or Nashville or something like that. Um, and the idea is, I mean, the vision is that they will fully automate their fleet within the next 5 to 10 years. And what they are selling to drivers is like, oh, well, actually, you'll own the car, but you won't have to drive it. So we'll be out there making money for you while you do whatever you want. All right. I mean, I would love for that to be true, but nothing about how this economy works makes me think that it will be anything other than some large, business owner buying up a fleet of EVs, which, by the way, are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for cost wise to the owner to kind of manage a business fleet of their own, rather than just like a normal person with a car that can do this. It's going to be taxi cartels 2.0. And which is so sort of tragic and ironic because the whole value proposition to society of Uber in the first place was that the taxi cartels were evil.
Yep.
And here we are again, bringing that back around because, the investor incentives and expectations say that it has to.
It pains me, folks. I was born and raised in the Bay, and you saw all this goodwill and all this energy and all this bright talent built into this. And then this literally was like it's like Darth Vader. It was like you were the chosen one, Anakin, and then Anakin radicalizes in Revenge of the Sith and comes and like destroys all of us on behalf of like the AI god, which I guess in this case we'll call Emperor Palpatine. But that's what happened. I was born and raised there. I was there for 31 years of my life. My family's still there. And to see my hometown literally be to produce the world eaters, Catherine, the name of Catherine's book. These people now who are so naked, so open, so shameless in their authoritarian agenda. You just have to listen to them, folks. Trust the evidence of your eyes and ears. Don't listen to me and Catherine. Just listen to Peter Thiel. He openly shares it. Listen to Alex Karp of Palantir in the surveillance state. I'm going to have the author of the book who's talking about our upcoming surveillance state at 4 p.m. Speaking about the panopticons, right? But these people now are like, okay, you invest in your own extinction. And I think that's what we're doing right now. They're literally telling us to invest in our own extinction or else. And Howard
Yeah.
Lutnick, a billionaire, who is part and parcel of the Trump administration, I think, he openly just said, he goes, don't worry about this. Sure, the workers will be hurt right now in the short term with the economy. And he openly said, but they're going to be replaced anyway by AI. But it isn't just the workers, right? AI, the venture capitalists are also not just coming for labor, but like you mentioned, and this is well, every single chapter in your book is very sobering, but now you're talking about housing. They're like, oh, we got labor, we got AI, we got crypto, we're influencing state assemblies, judges, we have enough money to maybe decide elections. What else can we get? What else can we get? Homes. Talk to us about the cannibals coming after our homes.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of the biggest markets in the world, right? The single family home market in the US. And so, of course, I mean, that's the logical extension of this. I mean, if the idea is we're looking for markets that are big enough that can justify this sort of exponential power law growth, then it was only a matter of time before they were going to come for the financial sector. And it kind of comes out of the Great Recession when there were all of these foreclosed homes, and HUD was developing programs that at the time seemed to make a lot of sense, where they needed somebody to buy these homes so that they weren't just sitting empty and like hollowing out communities. So better to have investors buy them and rent them out to people than to have them sitting empty. And so that's what they enabled. And at the time, this was the mid 2000s, the thinking in real estate was the only reason they hadn't really gone into this market before was that it was just, prohibitively difficult to manage a far-flung portfolio of thousands of single-family homes. To be a landlord for 10 homes is super hard to do, let alone thousands that are spread across the country. So they just never did it. But then, the rise of technology, big data, mobile devices made it possible for them to manage these homes on a platform. And that just unlocked that, and the policy decisions that that HUD made created basically the single family rental market.
Mm,
And
mm.
and that is what we see now with like Blackstone and Invitation Homes and all these companies that are buying up single family homes to rent back to people in a really exploitive way. They are all enabled by venture backed companies that create the platforms and the data tools that allow them to do this. And then those larger institutional investors then invest back in the venture capital funds that create the exploitative business models. Now, crypto is getting into the game. We're now sort of tokenizing real estate and letting people invest fractionally. So, I mean, it's really dystopian. It feel, obviously the home is the cornerstone of the American dream. And when we have now sort of created a financial market that has no bounds around that element, again, like, what does that mean for American democracy?
Folks, I hope I'm wrong. On this, I don't think I am. This bubble is going to burst. And once it bursts, this collapse is 2008 times 10, because their fingers are now in all of the honey jars, all of it. And they've tethered their insane, like high people ideas to our financial institutions, to our government policy, to the housing industry, to the labor market, right? So if one of them goes, it's going to be like like a house of cards, but the cards are going to explode. And we are being, like, it seems like, Catherine, we are being asked to invest in a Ponzi scheme without our will and consent, and we know it's a Ponzi scheme, and they're like, doesn't matter, you still have to invest in it. And it's just like it's like that snake eating its tail. But the rich are going to get richer. If we don't stop them, Catherine, and of course, we can only go off the evidence of our eyes and our ears at the moment that we're living in, based on the information that we have. But let's just imagine they continue on their path. There is no significant disruption or regulation. Endgame in 5 years. Where do you see this going?
Well, I mean, I think you said a couple really important things there that, as I've been talking, I've been like, wow, this is deeply discouraging and depressing conversation. And I am actually an optimist. I think, what did you say? If we don't stop them, you also used, I think, the word will and consent. It's very important for us to understand that this is not inevitable, and
Mm,
that, what I said before about this being about fundamentally anti-human technology, that's what I mean. I mean that we need to take our humanity back, and I do believe there's a way to build this technology that benefits humanity. Like, I have a genetic disorder that puts me at a much higher risk of getting an incurable disease. I need AI to be deployed to find cures for that. I need AI to be, sorting through, even mundane things, making public transportation more efficient so we can it's more economical to build it out, finding solutions to the housing crisis. There are ways to deploy this technology that serve humanity. And right now it's serving mammon. It's serving, this sort of fundamentally godless, um, soul crushing quest for more. And we can say no. We can say no, and we can offer a different vision for this. And so, I mean, I think what is it going to look like in 5 years? It's going to look like what we make it. There are two extremely important elections in the next 5 years that I think will determine how this goes. We're fighting really hard in California to make sure that California is a bulwark against this. Um, and I think there's still a lot of hope for us. So I don't want people to just be discouraged and think, okay, now I just have to sit back and let this wash over me, and what's going to happen is going to happen, and I'm just a bystander to my own destiny. Like, we have a choice to make, and it's time for us to retake our agency and our consent and our will. I mean, I think about, the labor movement of the late 19th century. Their slogan was 8 hours a day for work, 8 hours a day for sleep, and 8 hours a day for what we will. And it was just a very clear and comprehensive campaign that didn't just say this is about labor protections, this is about what happens when I'm on the job. It was about this is what it means to have human dignity in this moment. And I think we need a similar type of movement that doesn't just speak to the specific narrow economic use cases, but speaks to what it was going to be, what it is going to mean to be human in an age of AI.
That was excellent. Yeah, for those who have little faith in me, I was actually going to set up Catherine because I never end on a depressing note, but she went there and saved me that time because my take on this, based on what you said, is a reason why Mamdani won. And I actually disagree. I think Mamdani is replicable. A lot of people I hear them saying he's a generation. Yes, this is not taking away from Mamdani and what he did. But I believe what he did was essentially say, okay, it's us versus the 1%. It's us versus the oligarchy. I'm going to show you a way out. They're going to throw everything at the kitchen sink at me, and we're still going to win. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus. I'm not going to throw workers under the bus, immigrants under the bus, Muslims under the bus, gay people under the bus, women under the bus. All of us need a better, affordable life. That was the message. He didn't throw the woke under the bus, Catherine. He said, woke, come with me. And then also he messaged. He didn't take anything for granted. He knocked on doors and he repeated his message, even at the White House. Standing next to Trump, he repeated his message. And I think that's that message that says it's us versus the 1%, us against the world eaters, us against the billionaires. And he also said, like, essentially what you said when he was asked about billionaires, he goes, I don't think they should exist, but if they do, I'll work with you to make things better, right? And what he did also, I think, is what so many writers have done, right? Our job is, I always say we're in the inshallah business. The inshallah business is we imagine the better world. We imagine the way forward, right? That's what we do. We're in the inshallah business. And I think what he really got people invested in is, inshallah things to get back. I give taxes, Catherine. Why can't I have free buses? Shut up. That's crazy. Why is it crazy? Shut your mouth and be a capitalist. Yeah, but why? Why? No, shut your mouth, child. I'm telling you, you're going to stop being a freeloader. And they're like, nah, I think I deserve free buses and affordable housing. And I think if you're bold in the inshallah, Catherine, and if you're bold in that vision, and then with some other friends, you say, okay, well, this is the path. Let me lay out the bricks. This is how we get there. I think people will follow. And I'll also say, and people might think this is weird, I use MAGA. I use them. I use them to destroy MAGA, and I also use them to, if you will, a Trojan horse, the stuff I want mainstream media to say. When it comes to mainstream media, Catherine, and this is from my, if you will, expertise, I can say the same thing for 10 years. But if a middle-aged conservative white man says it, everyone says, that conservative white man is a genius. So if I can have Steve Bannon say
Totally.
that, I know they won't listen to Catherine. They won't listen to Awaj. Steve Bannon says this yesterday, folks. He literally said he's going to declare war on the Republicans who don't embrace AI regulation because he says this is going to wipe out workers. So I'm like, okay, Steve Bannon, I'm going to use you. I'll use you. I'll use you, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'll use you guys. And then Once you guys think you have power, I'm going to make sure I knock you out. Then that you're I take you out by your knees because I know you're end game. But I digress. I feel like if we can, seed this and use this, Catherine, I think there is an opening, like you said, right now, going into 2026, 2028, not just with liberals and progressives, but also, like you said, with this MAGA movement that realizes, oh shit, these guys are coming after all of us, and they see where the wind is blowing, and they realize that Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and Alex Karp are extremely unpopular right now. So we have to put the pressure. We have to put the pressure. We have to put the pressure. Catherine, you end your book on a hopeful note. But speaking about the vision, venture capitalism isn't going to go away. If someone's watching right now, they know venture capitalists, they are a venture capitalist, they want to be a venture capitalist. What advice would you give them on how to do venture capitalism the right way, and in a way where they can still make a lot of money?
Yeah, I mean, I was just having this conversation with one of them yesterday. I mean, the truth is, the math is that, in the power law, the number of companies that can be that big returner that carries the entire fund is extremely small. It's much smaller than the amount of money that is in the venture capital ecosystem right now, which is one of the reasons I say it's broken containment. Like, the things they are funding are just not, there aren't enough of them to justify the amount of money that is going into this. But there are, the 99% of the rest of the innovative, risky startups that get created every year to fund things like innovation in the housing market, for example, are not going to be grand slams. They might be doubles and triples if they are given the chance to be doubles and triples. So why is it that we can't design financial tools to make money off of those as well? In the same way that in the middle of the 20th century, these really thoughtful business leaders tried a bunch of things. They created hypotheses and then tried them, and they had investors who were willing to let it play out. They found the thing that was venture capital. They found the power law. But maybe we can start to innovate a little bit to find the thing that's going to fund the rest of these companies too. And it's like, the irony of this is that Silicon Valley likes to think of itself as sort of outside of the box thinkers and very sort of heterodox and challenging, norms and all of this thing. But they have not innovated on the actual business model of venture capital ever, in the last, certainly not in the last 20 years. So it is a ripe time if you are, if you want to be a disruptor. Venture capital is ripe for disruption, and designing financial models that can take advantage of the actual market opportunities that are present in the vast majority of startups that get created every year is going to make you a lot of money. And so I think, if people are actually capitalists out there, it seems crazy to me that they would be sitting on the sidelines and not trying to figure this out.
I think it's a very important point. It's uh, you ever see Monsters Inc? Remember the Pixar movie? For those who haven't seen Monsters Inc, and if you haven't seen it, Catherine, it's like the monsters. They live in a parallel universe, and the way they create energy for their entire city is through children's screams, right? But then they find out, oh, children's laughter actually generates 10 times as much energy and is much more efficient. And it's always kind of been stuck in my head. There's like, if you don't have the vision and you're just stuck to this one way of thinking, you're like, nope, this is the only way to make money.
Yeah.
But maybe if you tie in empathy and concern, and you connect to the community, there's actually not just even a better, more ethical, more sustainable way of doing it, but that way might actually help you get more money, and more love, and uplift everyone. And unfortunately, that type of mindset, as Catherine has articulated in her book, and anyone who's been watching right now, the Left Hook, for the past year, or literally heard and seen Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and Andreessen and all these people, that humanity and empathy is missing from them, folks. It's just gone. And so we have to replace them. We have to replace them with better people, who have that entrepreneurial spirit, but also have the heart. And we need fighters, and we need the rest of us, Catherine, the majority that puts pressure on Democrats and elected officials, and ask them, why are you taking money from venture capitalists who are cannibalizing our labor, and our housing? And you want my vote? Nah. So you have a choice. You either drop them, or you drop me. And we have the numbers. And I do think, Catherine, like you said, we're in a really generational moment. where Mamdani's win has created this seismic opportunity for us moving forward. We have these two big elections, folks. Like, this is it. Generational opportunity, 2026, 2028. So this is why I'm indebted to Catherine and others like her who are doing their best with their expertise to sound the alarm. Catherine, shamelessly promote yourself.
All right, check out Tech Equity, the organization I run. We're fighting the good fight to make sure there are guardrails on this technology in California, which is obviously the home of these companies. What we do here will change the world. And buy World Eaters: How Venture Capital is Cannibalizing the Economy. If you want to understand the mindset that fuels Silicon Valley and now runs our country.
1,300 people are watching. For those who tune in late, don't worry. I'm going to have this entire conversation up on my Substack, and Catherine will have it up on her Substack. We're talking about how venture capitalists are cannibalizing the economy. The first half of this conversation will depress the hell out of you and terrify you, but don't you worry. Stick with it, and we give you a way out as well. There is, folks, there is a generational opportunity that we have right now. It's not over yet. Catherine's book, again, is called World Eaters. It came out earlier this year. It's a fantastic book. And I think the reason why Catherine in particular is a really good, if you will, author or Virgil for us on this journey is because she was with the Obama administration. She believed in tech. She's in the Bay Area. She
I
wanted to
still
work.
believe in tech. I still believe in tech.
She still believes in tech. And then she realized, oh, these current world leaders, Ah, they don't have the best intentions, and so she actually knows them, she works with them, and that's why I think she also has a very realistic and practical way out for all of us. Thank you all for watching. This is The Left Hook. I'll be back at 3:30 with Lev Parnas to talk about Ukraine, as one does. We go from venture capitalism to Ukraine. I'm a terrible capitalist, Catherine. I've kept everything for free and without paywalls. Don't judge me. But if anyone has some money, go buy Catherine's book. If you have a few dollars left over, please become a paid subscriber. I have like 800 kids. You help me feed one of them, and I have 3 cats. I'll be back at 4 p.m. Speaking of the surveillance state, I happen to have today Michael Steinberger, who just released a book on Alex Karp and Palantir and the surveillance state. That's at 4. That's at 4. And then at 5 o'clock, I have political analyst David Corn to talk about the MAGA implosion. Everyone, be kind, be informed, and please, oh, please don't be a fascist. Thank you, Catherine. Come back anytime.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.